Today we're talking to Tom Weise, Marine Superintendent at the Scilly Steamship Group. Tom is part of the team overseeing the design and construction of the new Scillonian IV and cargo vessel, with a focus on improving accessibility for all passengers.
So my name's Tom Weise. I am the Marine Superintendent here at the Scilly Steamship Group. Marine Superintendent basically, it's not basic at all by any means actually, ensures the safe operation of all of our vessels. That's everything from our freight vessels, passenger vessels and our 3 work boats. Also look after the crewing element of the fleet, of which there are between 50 and 60 crew members at present. 2 other elements of my role are being the designated person as required by the ISM, the International Safety Management Code, which means I have to ensure the efficient operation of our safety management system and continuously audit and make sure that's continuously improving. And I'm also the company security officer as required by the ISPS code.
Accessibility has become a critical consideration in the maritime industry. Let's hear how the Steamship Group is addressing this in their new vessel designs.
It certainly has become a hot topic. Industry has dealt with it in waves, I would say. I think we're in a position now whereby regulations and guidelines haven't necessarily kept up with our understanding about what accessibility actually means. Wrongly, in a lot of the cases, everybody assumes accessibility means people in wheelchairs. That isn't the case. That's a very small minority. There is a whole wider picture about what accessibility actually means, and accessibility means for everybody. It's how do I get on the vessel? How do you get on the vessel? How do our colleagues? How do our visitors? How does our passengers? How do our contractors? How does everybody get on and off and navigate their way around on board the vessel safely? That is accessibility. It's not to do with just wheelchair users.
The new Scillonian IV and the cargo vessel incorporates several key features to enhance accessibility. Tom walks us through these improvements.
So accessibility is considered very early on in the design considerations. Actually, it was considered when the initial specifications were coming through for the vessels themselves. It was something that I was personally looking at quite closely in terms of how yards were looking to incorporate certain features into the designs. There were certainly some features that were a must on our list of things that we wanted to achieve. One of those being Scilonian IV at present has a single accessible toilet located on one deck below the outside deck, which is only accessible by a lift, which can only be used in port. Something we decided upon very early on in the build program was that the lift needed to be able to be used in a wider range of sea conditions. We wanted a lift that can certainly be used whilst at sea in the majority of the sea states that we're going to experience for the vessel. That lift should go between all of the passenger decks. That was quite clear in our requirements for the vessel. In terms of accessible toilets, these were added to every deck. So for Scillonian IV, there will be one accessible toilet on each individual passenger deck. So now we have gone from a lift that we can only use in port with one accessible toilet to having 3 accessible toilets in the new build and a lift that should be able to be used in the majority of sea conditions. Something that's quite recently been being worked on in the build of Scilonian IV is the interior design and layout of the vessel. Something we are talking about at present is the cafe layout and the ability to have a desk space or a till space at a slightly lower level for those passengers that are in wheelchairs or require that till area to be slightly lower. That's something we are looking to incorporate. We're also looking to ensure that the thresholds on all of the doorways have minimal, if no lip. And by lip, I mean that you won't have to step over anything as you're passing through areas on board. Ideally, this will be between the inside and outside decks also, but that's something that's still very much in the design phase. Another item we're closely looking at is the gangway arrangements for the vessels, for both the new cargo vessel and Scilonian IV. We're working with a supplier already in terms of how we can both minimise the gangway angles. Now, there is a limit we're allowed up to. That limit is quite steep in areas when pushed to its extreme, but it is allowed. So something we are talking to suppliers about is how can we reduce this angle. The other thing we're looking at as well is how we can reduce the lips at either end of the gangways, so the actual connection points, and how we can make sure that the transfer from shore to gangway and from gangway to ship and vice versa is as seamless as possible, so that all persons can traverse the gangway in an easier manner. So in terms of the layout of the new vessel, something again that we've been quite clear on with the design from the start was that we wanted to be able to have dual gangway access. It isn't something from day zero that will be incorporated into the operation from day zero, but it is something that the vessel is designed for. So if future infrastructure upgrades were to occur shoreside, it could allow the vessel to therefore have the benefit of having a dual gangway access for embarkation and disembarkation. This obviously opens up a world of opportunity for passengers that maybe require a little bit of additional assistance or time to board the vessel, or if for speed in terms of embarkation, disembarkation, and the mass movement of passengers from on board to shore or vice versa.
The new vessels have been designed with accessibility at their core. Tom explains how this approach benefits all passengers.
So Scillonian IV has been designed from the initial spec and all the way through the design process to date to ensure that passengers are able to move around the vessel as freely as possible, whether they require additional assistance, whether they have mobility issues. And as we move further forward through the design phases, that will include other sensory disabilities that may require insight. We'll take a closer look at signage as we progress through the build programme. The onboard signage onboard Scillonian IV is something that's always been complemented on in terms of that for those with visual impairments. So it's something that we would be looking to take forward into the new build. In terms of indoor and outdoor seating and passenger movement around the vessel on Scillonian IV, all of the openings around all of the seats will be wide enough to push both prams and wheelchairs around. So that space is there, and obviously when it comes to handrails around the vessel, these will be positioned in such a way that they are available for use as and when a person does require them. Passenger seating on the outside deck should be orientated in such a way whereby it means that if particularly a wheelchair user in this discussion point here is able to then move slightly more freely, well, much more freely around on that outside deck than they currently would be able to on Scillonian III. Scillonian IV will continue to have both audible and visual safety videos on board. They're also available on the website if anybody wishes to see them beforehand. But this would be a feature that certainly carries through from Scillonian III to Scillonian IV. We will continue to have on board large print and braille copies of safety videos and passenger rights information, and we will continue to work with the local disability groups in terms of how we can look to continue improving in all areas of accessibility.
With these thoughtful design considerations and ongoing commitment to accessibility, the Scilly Steamship Group is ensuring that their new vessels will provide a more inclusive travel experience for all passengers. In our next episode, we'll be taking you on an exciting journey to Vietnam, where the new Scillonian IV and the cargo vessel are currently undergoing construction. We catch up with project managers who will give us an exclusive tour of the shipyards and the offices, providing a behind-the-scenes look at the progress of these state-of-the-art vessels.